Kari Lake is very upset with something that Biden said recently, as is much of the right wing. And I'm going to show you that clip. She calls him disgusting, and it's just horrible. But first, here's kind of the context. So Peter Ducey, son of Steve Ducey on Fox News, asked Biden as he was walking towards his helicopter or something, why haven't you visited the border? And Biden said, quote, because there's more important things going on, and this just caused an explosion. How dare he? This has to be the most important issue, out of his mouth all the time, and he should visit every single day, and the White House should be set up on the border. No. But it is a little bit silly, as I talked about before. We should care about the policies that are pushed for by the administration, not how often they visit the place that the policies affect, because sometimes simply getting your eyes on it doesn't do anything to heighten your understanding of the situation, because especially with something like the border is just the part where it becomes present to us, but what causes any issues you would care about in relation to it are so much more vast and complex than actually the line there that's being upheld. That is being upheld, even though they pretend that it's completely open. But we'll get to the Kari Lake moment, but before, here's Biden getting asked that question.
The border, because there's a more important thing going on. They're going to invest billions of dollars in a new enterprise.
Okay, so that little moment sparked so much outrage. And I do think, don't ever say because it's not, or because there's more important issues, because that issue, whoever puts it as number one on the list will be so offended instantly, so you might as well just ignore or avoid saying that. But I don't understand the outrage, because you can also recognize there's a lot going on for the president. Maybe visiting the border isn't necessarily in his weekly schedule. But here's Kari Lake's response.
He pulled back every single plan that President Trump put in place.
The policy has not been that different. A few key things, namely, but this has already been stopped before, but he's not separating children from their families. That's good. But besides that, there's just not a huge difference in border policy between Biden's administration and Trump's. And so the framing of everything has changed and that's why it's terrible and horrible is just dishonest.
He stopped the construction of the border wall, and he basically, with a wink and a nod, told the world, come on over, we're open for business. Right. And he created the problem. But I am appalled that he would say that. You look into the eyes of a mother who's lost a 19-year-old son or a 20-year-old daughter to fentanyl poisoning, and you tell them what happens on the border doesn't matter. This man is I'm sorry, he's disgusting. And I can't even believe he had the gall to come to Arizona after creating this crisis here without even acknowledging it. He pulled back.
So Kari Lake is the disgusting one, because as we've talked about before, she's a part of the cohort of the right that tries to connect immigration to fentanyl. And what she did there was an emotional plea to a heartbreaking story that is a very real experience of too many Americans, of a loved one dying of fentanyl poisoning. But they try to connect that to the myth they have of open borders and saying that all these illegal immigrants are bringing in fentanyl. And the truth, as we discussed previously in relation to Marjorie Taylor Greene, is completely against their narrative, because it's legal citizens and legal ports of entry where this fentanyl is getting across. And they purposefully ignore that. They purposely don't actually want to address the issue. They are actively trying to not solve the problem of fentanyl. They're actively trying to not, because what's more important to them is demonizing immigrants, is making them seem like the other, because fear drives voters. It drives a movement like theirs. And so they ignore the issue of fentanyl, but use it, the actual addressing of that issue, but instead use it as a way to fearmonger about the border. And of course, they're not saying the border is bad because the legal ports of entry aren't being managed well enough. All they ever circle it back to or connect it back to is undocumented immigration. And so it's one of the most dishonest things in politics as of late, and it's so aggravating to watch every single day. But good border policy is important. I just want to see that, regardless of how often the president visits the border. And what I want is people who actually want to solve issues and actually want to address how we could enhance and improve our legal immigration process so less people are attempting to come across in an undocumented manner and actually address these issues, but they're not interested in that. Because then, we wouldn't be able to fearmonger and hate immigrants. No fun in that. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get access to an extra full show every Saturday that only members can see, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there is a link in the description.